that us as MENA scholars, we were already facing many challenges conducting research in the region even before the pandemic. So as we all know, and lots of researchers attending with us today, they already know that it has been challenging due to the prevalence of authoritarian politics, repressive measures, absence of the rule of law, and this deep mistrust in foreign researchers and entities, security surveillance, and regimes' arbitrary exercise of power. So there's so many things that we had to maneuver when we were doing research, even before the pandemic. And even local scholars were facing so many challenges relating to the topics that they would choose to study, and also challenges relating to funding and restrictions on travel and acquiring foreign funding for the research. After the uprisings, as we all know, we were all very hopeful, and there was like this brief era of openness, and most of us were hoping to get more work done in the region, but very shortly we were confronted with a worsening situation due to increased violence, civil wars, increased state scrutiny and intimidation, which culminated, of course, as we all know, in the murder of Giuliani in Egypt in 2016 and the detention of many academics across the region. So the setting was very, very complex, and it was very, very complicated for us to do work. I remember that when I was doing my dissertation work, which was based on public opinion data, just even me thinking about acquiring a fresh first-hand data from a Middle East country was just impossible. So we were already functioning in a very complex situation, and we had, as foreign scholars, and even myself being an Arab working from the US, we had really to build very strong networks of trust, and we had to spend countless hours in the field building these trust networks and ensuring also the safety of our subjects and our own safety, of course, but most importantly, our research subjects, because this is no point that we do our research and we get the data that we want and then we just leave them there and they face whatever fate they may face. So there's also this, like my research on parliaments that I was been doing for the last 6-7 years. I had to spend like days and weeks and like months in the field in these parliaments, talking to parliamentarians, even to administrative staff, and trying to convince them that I'm not dangerous and I was just going to get the data and write my book. So there's so much work that you do in the field for you in order to get the information to get to do your work. So going back to your question about the pandemic, so what we see that, and what we found in the survey, that the pandemic has just added an additional layer of complexity to doing work in the region. It was the freezing of the research funding and the travel funds from our institutions, and this over-reliance in remote methods of data collection. We are not able anymore to ensure the safety of our participants, our research participants and subjects, with the increased state surveillance of all the digital world and this digital espionage and the control of the other communication mediums. We cannot ensure the ethical implementation of our designs anymore, and we saw this in our survey, where respondents were saying, we can't do it. Even if it's logistically feasible, we just can't do it. There's so many security and ethical issues that are related to our project that we are worried about. So, and more research that coming from not just the Middle
وقفنا
East.
بعض الشيء ليس فقط في هذا السياق، حتى بعض الوباء. هذه السلطات هي تحاول أن تخنق الشعب أكثر.
Further deepening of autocratic practices under the pretext of controlling the spread of the pandemic. The last thing that I also want to bring up is the issues of accessibility and how this digital modes of communications and the online data collection. And so there's an accessibility issue that's related to this as well, that not all, not especially when it comes to disadvantaged or vulnerable populations, they not all have access to these different modes of communication. And now we're excluding a big chunk of our subjects from our research just because of accessibility issues.